can greet you, or if you're watching via live stream, please wave or say hello in the comments section. And also, please silence your cell phone or other electronic device. We are a lay-led church charged with the mission to offer joyful, mind-expanding worship services, provide opportunities for fellowship and spiritual development for children, youth, young adults, and adults, to promote social change and inspire service to the larger community. On Sunday mornings, we aspire to fulfill that mission by inviting UU ministers, other religious professionals, and leaders from community organizations working for social justice, as well as our own members, to be voices of hope, courage, and spiritual or intellectual transformation from our pulpit. Providing that voice today is Dr. Jim O'Neill, who is a member of our sister church, Community Church in Lakeview. Welcome. If you would like to know more about programming for children and families, Katie Gelfand, our Director of Religious Exploration there in the front row, is the person to ask. After the Time for All Ages story, children and youth are welcome to spend the service time either in the nursery, which is in the RE wing to my right over there, or to stay here in the sanctuary at the All Ages activity table at the back. I'll remind you that all of the words and lyrics for the chalice lighting, readings, and hymns, as well as the link to the to give for the offertory, and all First Church announcements are available by aiming your smartphone camera at the QR codes on the cards in the back of the chairs here in the sanctuary. If you don't currently receive our weekly electronic newsletter, please sign up to get it on the mailing list. And we have two announcements this morning, Beverly and then Ann.
Good morning. First of all, I want to apologize to anyone who was, especially our guest speaker, who was confused about the dates in the email digest. And I'll also announce that there's an opening for proofreaders of the email digest. We're thinking of firing the old one. Seriously though, if you want to get your email digest 5 or 6 hours earlier than everyone else and read it really quickly, or not too quickly, that could be a problem. Let me know. And then I want to remind you that this is your 2-week, those of you who are here, this is your 2-week notice for our second quarter congregational meeting. And as you know, we have lots to talk about and lots to share. So, nope, second quarter, fourth quarter is, our fiscal year is the July to July. So, July to June. So, and buy a Christmas tree. Oh, I did want to tell you, the lovely hibiscus, I need a mouth proofreader too. The lovely poinsettias are purchased by members and placed in honor of loved ones and other members, and then they're loaned to the church to make us feel seasonal. And if you would like to buy one, they're out at the end of the hallway.
Hi, I'll make it even easier. I'll sell them to you right at the table in the back, where I'm also handing out pledge forms. But I wanted to remind everyone that this Tuesday the 28th is Giving Tuesday. That's an international day to get people who spent too much on Black Friday on themselves to give back to other organizations. And First Church is participating. We are seeking funds, and not from you guys who already pledge and support this church, but from friends, former members who live outside the New Orleans area and don't pledge anymore, community members who are aligned with our mission, and If you could help get the word out by spreading the word on social media, the link is in your digest and also on our Facebook page. It explains what we're doing. We're trying to raise funds to preserve our stained glass and other things that we're going to want to take with us when we sell the building. So please just put it out there the next 2 days. We'll take people's donations anytime, but this is a special ask and and if you miss it, we'll do it again for end of year giving. Just an opportunity again to reach out to people beyond our core group to see if they want to make a donation. And I thank you for sharing that. If you need more information on that, just ask me. I'll be at the back table. And now we have a stewardship moment by Adam Higgins, who's going to tell you why he supports and loves the church.
Good morning. Ann said I only have 3 minutes, and if you've ever talked with me at coffee hour, you know that I could talk a lot, so I'm setting an alarm right now. Participation is my little idea for this. So I'm gonna make you guys participate a little bit, but all you have to do is raise your hands. So first one, can you hear me without me standing behind the microphone? Raise your hand. Excellent. So my name is Adam Higgins. I've been coming to this church since 2017, but I've been a member here since 2020 because of Katie Gelfand in 2020, and I met this church in 2017. So I met this church wearing a pair of booty shorts, fishnet stockings, and a top hat at the Pride Parade. Has anybody ever marched with this church in the Pride Parade? All right, okay, some of you. All right. Does anybody here know Chelsea Braun, who used to be our facilities manager here? So I met Chelsea in my fishnet stockings and booty shorts and top hat, and a tasteful t-shirt with Marilyn Monroe on it that said, "Love everyone, you're beautiful." And she came up to their table outside of Pride, and Chelsea had this worried look on her face, and she's like, "Not enough people showed up to march in the parade who said they were going to be here." And she said, "Can you march in the parade?" And I said, "Of course." So I held a banner that said First Unitarian Universalist and went through the parade and shouted out compliments to all the people I saw along the way. And I met Reverend Paul. Does anybody here remember Reverend Paul or knew him? And Reverend Paul was just sitting there smiling as I came up, rolling through an iPad with pictures of people who'd just been on the naked bike ride that he knew. I was like, I like this church. And participating is how I mainly interact with this church. As you can see, I'm very outgoing. I'm one of the RE teachers here. I have been since 2017. Raise your hand if you've ever taught an RE class here. The way I became an RE teacher is another congregant here asked me to do improv in the library for a thank you event, and nobody wanted to do improv or watch improv, but the kids liked it, so that afterwards I played with the kids over and over that I've never met before, and Katie Gelfand came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be an RE teacher?" And I said, "Yes, that is how I could participate." But I've been to probably 15 to 20 different Unitarian Universalist churches all across America, and I have never joined. I went to a Unitarian church in Wisconsin for the first time with my ex-wife, and then I moved to Chicago and went to 2 different churches there for between 7 and 9 years, and I never joined. It's my timing. I've already got time, you guys. All right, what I'm saying is I normally participate through action with people and doing things because that's what I love, is participating and being a part of this church. And it wasn't until 2020 when the pandemic hit and I knew that I had to participate more because I had to make sure I could contribute financially to this place going. And I thought of Chelsea Braun, who used to be our facilities manager, and Katie Gelfand, and I couldn't imagine being a part of this place if they didn't have their jobs here. And so I knew I had to become a member to participate with my money. So It is such an honor to be part of this congregation. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Adam. We will now have our reading of the Call to Awareness Amends, which is on the back cover of the gray hymnal. I will read the initial lines, and you will read the responsive lines, which are for you in italics. We gather today at a crossroads,
on land the Choctaw called Opancha,
the place of many tongues.
a place we call home,
But we are newcomers to this land.
while native peoples are of this land. The Caddo and the Natchez, the Choctaw, Chitimacha, and Homa, the Tunica, Biloxi, Atakapa, Ishak, and more.
Know that we gather
On land that was stolen,
the spoils of colonialism and broken treaties.
of forced removal and genocide.
Acknowledging this history is just the first step.
We must set ourselves to the task of repair.
Where we have harmed,
We seek to heal.
where we have taken,
We seek to give.
where we have disparaged,
We seek to honor.
just as the flame of our chalice,
Lights our way to beloved community,
we add life-giving water.
to recall the land's native roots and to nurture solidarity.
Only when we strive to make amends
Do we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each person.
And we will now recite together the chalice lighting, which is in your order of service. We light this flame to affirm the light of truth and knowledge, the warmth of love and community, and the fire of hope and commitment.
Please remain risen and join in singing our opening hymn, Wake Now My Senses, number 298. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now, my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Please be seated.
Good morning. First, we're going to do the traveling chalice exchange. And this time, I'm going to twist it up a little bit. Who here knows what the traveling chalice is? Raise your hand. Who here wants to share about what the traveling chalice is instead of me? just for fun, just for fun. Michael? Great. Michael Martin is going to tell you about what the traveling chalice is and why you should take it home this week.
So the traveling chalice is a symbol of our heritage, but it's a collective group of memories we have that we have written about and use symbols and family pictures in the book. We do various rituals with it. There are no rules. And the chalice is always lit. It symbolizes our growing development, our growing peace, and all that. So yeah, the traveling chalice, and multiple people have written in it. There's Mel, and there are multiple images. It's really a lovely palimpsest of our beliefs, our histories, and our personal memories of our togetherness. And cats. Cats. There are lots of cats. So yeah.
So much art. Thanks, Michael. Yay! Participation, right? So, what lucky household is enticed to take this home? You can have it for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a few weeks. You can just set the chalice on the table and on your altar. Hopefully, we want you to hopefully use it every day, but even if it's just there to remind you and about the chalice, and then you explore some of the stuff in the book and then just write your name in the book, that's fine. Or you can use it every single day. You can write your own chalice lightings. You can read, the book will make you cry. I promise, it'll make you cry. So is there someone who maybe hasn't taken the chalice? I have my eye on the household, and I will call on them if no one else volunteers. But is there anyone who feels excited? Yes? Really? Wonderful. Jefferson, will you come up and introduce yourselves? That would be amazing.
I've been thinking about this for several weeks since I knew that I would be subbing today, and I'm not a regular member, but I've been coming here for several years, playing the piano and subbing, and I've seen the chalice change hands, and I thought it was a beautiful symbol and a beautiful ritual. And I've been thinking about, gee, if nobody's going to jump up and grab it, I think I'll do that.
Thank you so much, Jefferson. Oh, what a treat and a surprise. I'm very excited. All right, but this household, you probably know who you are. I still have my eye on you for next time, so be prepared. And now I'd like to invite those young and young at heart to join me on the carpet circles for a story. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to share a story that's really great for a number of reasons. Thank you. I'm supposed to do this myself in advance, and I forgot, and Zach always helps me. All right. Can you still hear me? So I'm going to share this story that is wonderful and sweet for a number of reasons, but who here is like, I'm a nice person, I'm a good person, but every once in a while, this like meanie comes out. Every once in a while. Who, let's be honest. All right, people that don't have your hands up, like, okay, good for you. I'm sure that's true. Every once in a while, this little meanie comes out, and this is a story about two friends whose meanies come out and the way that they resolve it, but also how it becomes infectious. So being mean can be infectious, just like being nice can be infectious. It's a great book. We'll just get into it. The Sandwich Swap by Her Majesty Queen Ranina Al Abdullah. Seriously, Queen. It all began with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it ended with a hummus sandwich. Selma and Lily were best friends at school. They drew pictures together. They played on the swing together. They jumped rope together. They ate their lunch together. But just what they ate was a little different. Lily ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch. And Selma ate a hummus and pita sandwich every day for lunch. Although Lily never said it out loud, she thought that Selma's sandwich looked weird and yucky. She felt terrible when her friend had to eat that icky chickpea paste every day. Ew, yuck. And although Selma never said it out loud, she thought Lily's sandwich looked strange and gross. She felt just awful that her friend had to eat that gooey peanut paste every day. Ew, gross. Really into eating like pasted protein for lunch. That's the theme. Then one day, Lily couldn't hold back those thoughts any longer. "Your sandwich looks kind of yucky," she blurted out. "What did you say?" Selma asked, thinking she must have misunderstood her friend. "I said your sandwich looks yucky." Selma frowned. She looked down at the thin, soft bread and thought of her beautiful, smiling mother as she carefully cut Selma's sandwich into 2 neat halves that morning. Her hurt feelings turned mad. "Yeah, well, your sandwich looks gross, and it smells bad, too." Lily looked surprised. She sniffed the thick, squishy bread, and she thought of her dad and his silly apron whistling as he cut Lily's sandwich into 2 perfect triangles that morning. Lily scowled. "It does not smell bad. Does too. Ew, gross, yucky." That afternoon, the 2 friends did not draw pictures together, they did not swing together, and they did not jump rope together either. The next day, Selma ate her lunch at one table and Lily at another table. Meanwhile, the peanut butter versus hummus story had spread, and everyone began choosing sides. Each side had something nice, not so nice to say about the other side. Peanut butter breath, jelly head, garlic breath, chickpea brains. Pretty soon, the rude insults had nothing at all to do with peanut butter or hummus. You're weird. You're stupid. You look funny. You dress dumb. And then it happened. Someone yelled, "Food fight!" Thought that would get more of a response from the audience than it did, to be honest. Peanut butter and hummus sandwiches and other lunch favorites began flying back and forth between both sides of the lunchroom. They stuck to the walls, they stuck to the ceiling, they stuck to the lunch lady. And when the sandwiches were all gone, pudding cups and applesauce and carrot sticks took flight. Selma and Lily looked at one another from across the rowdy, splattered room. They both felt ashamed at what they saw. They both really felt ashamed when they had to go to the principal's office later. The following day, they sat together at lunch. The 2 girls nibbled on their sandwiches in silence. Finally, Lily got up the courage to speak. "Would you like to try a bite of my peanut butter and jelly sandwich?" Selma grinned. "Sure, why not? Would you like to try my hummus and pita sandwich?" "I'd like that." "Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yummy. Hey, that's delicious. That's heavenly. The girls giggled and hugged and traded sandwiches. After lunch, Selma and Lily met at the principal's office again. This time, they were there to suggest a very special event for the whole school. And that's how it all began, with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and ended with a hummus sandwich. For those of you that can't see, it's a whole picnic, and then everyone has the different flags of the different cultures of food that they're bringing to the picnic potluck vibe. And they all lived happily ever after. You don't want the book?
We mourn the loss of life and the human toll that war and terrorism inevitably bring. We seek to help all innocent victims who suffer greatly because of the cruel, greedy, and oppressive action of others. We pray for families struggling with the reality of loss and displacement in Gaza and Israel, Ukraine, Haiti, and other parts of the world. Surround them with resources for sustenance and stability. In whatever ways we can, from near and far, let us offer our compassion, support, and needed services to bring comfort, healing, and hope to the most oppressed areas of our community and the world. We will now enter a few minutes of silence, followed by the singing of our meditation hymn.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
Good morning. I want to thank you for the invitation to share with you again. I'm particularly grateful. We have some members from this community and some members from Community Church who have been in dialogue over the last few months about how we might cooperate and support one another in our transitions. and those have been hopeful meetings. The first reading that I wanted to share with you today is from the book, The People of the Lie, The Hope for Healing Human Evil by M. Scott Peck, author of The Road Less Traveled. He writes, although evil is anti-life, it is itself a form of life. If we kill those who are evil, we will become evil ourselves. We will be killers. If we attempt to deal with evil by destroying it, we will also end up destroying ourselves, spiritually, if not physically. And we are likely to take some innocent people with us as well. What to do then? We must begin by giving up the simple notion that we can effectively conquer evil by destroying it. But this leaves us in a sort of nihilistic vacuum. Are we to throw up our hands, to regard the problem of evil as being inherently insolvable? Hardly. That would be meaningless. It is in the struggle between good and evil that life has its meaning, and in the hope that goodness can succeed. That hope is our answer. Goodness can succeed. Evil can be defeated by goodness. When we translate this, we realize what we are dimly have always known. Evil can be conquered only by love. End of the reading. I invite you to pick up your gray hymnal and join me in the responsive reading by Frederick Douglass. It's number 579, The Limits of Tyrants, number 579. I'll read the first lines and then you join in the italics. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground.
They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters.
This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle.
Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will.
Find out what people will submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them.
The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress.
I imagine, though it may be not true, that it was easier for Americans when human evil was out there across the ocean in the face of Adolf Hitler and the atrocities of Nazi Germany. But human evil is all around us now, not just in Putin's brutal attack on Ukraine, in the Hamas-Israel war, but also in our own epidemic of gun violence. We have reason to fear that no matter how kind and respectful we are, how much we do the right things for those around us, we may still find ourselves the victims of random acts of violence. How do we understand and what are we to do in the face of so much human evil? That's the focus of this reflection. In Joseph Campbell's book, The Power of Myth, he talked about what happens when a people do not have a myth that guides their life. For many years in our country, the dominant myth was Christianity, with people growing up following Jesus, the Ten Commandments, believing in a message like love your neighbor as yourself, and trusting if they did, they could find eternal happiness in heaven. Part of that myth was the belief that we were the center and pinnacle of creation, and that we were obliged to subdue the earth and all of its creatures for our purposes. That myth or story of our place in the universe is not believable today. So what is the operative myth in our country today? It's certainly not our seventh principle about living in harmony with, quote, respect for the independent web of existence of which we are a part. And even, is myth really important? Is the story we live out of, does it make a difference? Campbell teaches us that myth serves four functions. The mystical function, opening us up to the great mysteries of life, leading us to live with a sense of awe before that mystery. The cosmological function, showing us how the universe works. The sociological function, supporting a certain moral order, an order clearly lacking in our world today. And the pedagogical function, teaching us how to live in our world. Without a believable guiding myth, what happens? Joseph Campbell answered that question by telling us to look at the daily news of violence and disrespect for anything and anyone that does not provide immediate gratification of one's impulses and desires. Can you convince inner city kids who are neglected, discriminated against, and live without hope of a satisfying existence other than poverty and minimum wage? Can you convince them that our society will give them the opportunities to live a fulfilling life? Can we expect black youth to respect the law and police when young black men are beaten and killed by police after routine traffic stops? The myth they learn to live by is to take whatever you can before someone else does, and that you can't trust society, the government, and certainly not the police to protect and serve you. A lot of human evil is the endless cycle of evil begetting evil. Those who are unloved, neglected, and or abused take out their frustrations in destructive acts unless and until they find a way to transform their suffering into a life that brings healing. In other words, we all have to find a story, a myth that can guide our lives. And in our American society today, who can say what our guiding myth is? It's certainly not service of the common good. When asked what myth is needed today, Joseph Campbell answered, "The only myth that's going to be worth thinking about in the immediate future is one that's talking about the planet. Not the city, not these people, but the planet and everyone on it." He also commented on that photo of the Earth from space and suggested that might be the symbol of our new myth. No divisions, no countries, one people, one planet. I hear echoes of our sixth and seventh principles, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence. I am greatly encouraged by inspiring programs popping up across our country, either developed by youth who want to be of service or adults working with at-risk youth, helping them to find purpose and hope for their lives. In other words, they embody for them a meaningful myth. There are many who might have discouraged these young people, or the adults who create such programs, but they persist. And as soon as they persist, what begins to happen is others join because it's a good and right thing to do. Gratefully, we as Unitarians have an adequate myth to guide our lives. But how are we to understand and address human evil? The theologian Thomas Aquinas is often quoted as defining evil as the absence of good, but that's not all he said about it. He stated that evil is the absence of good that ought to be there. That suggests that there's a certain ought in the universe. Simply put, the way things ought to be. And the absence of that good order is evil, missing the mark, leaving a disordered state of being. If you substitute the word consciousness for the word good, then evil is the absence of consciousness or awareness that ought to be there. Put another way, the absence of something that's ready for our consciousness that is denied or repressed is the cause of evil. Now, all of us have aspects of our lives that are unlived. Some are not ready to be lived or expressed, but those aspects within us that are ready to be made conscious but are refused or repressed are the ones that cause trouble. In our personal lives, these repressed energies manifest in various physical and/or emotional symptoms or in destructive behaviors like random gun violence. In our collective lives, consciousness that is repressed can have disastrous consequences. For example, when so many deny the awareness that we as humans are making the earth uninhabitable, we are experiencing every day the consequences of droughts, flooding, increasingly destructive tornadoes and hurricanes, snowstorms, pollution, poisoning of our air and water, and of course, the unrelenting heat waves. This year we experienced the hottest our planet has ever recorded. The good or the consciousness that ought to be there is the recognition that our survival is directly linked to the health of the planet. That message is being delivered every day by Mother Earth as we watch one disaster after another. To deny the necessary care, the care that ought to be there of our Mother Earth, results in evil consequences we suffer daily. Another example of that evil that results from denying reality was when Trump and his followers denied the awareness, the reality, that he had lost the 2020 election. That denial erupted in the violent, deadly attack of an angry mob on the Capitol. The good of our democracy requires that we accept the results of an election, even if it's not what we personally want or think is best. The denial or repression of reality takes enormous energy, and that energy seeks expression. The healthy expression of that energy might be to get involved politically, to work on the next election. The destructive expression of that energy we experienced on January 6th, when our democracy was severely threatened by an angry mob who were being incited by a frustrated leader who refused to accept reality. Another factor that contributed to the evil was that it was easy for an individual in a group to pass the moral buck to another part of the group, particularly the leader. As Scott Peck put it, in this way, not only does the individual forsake his conscience, but the conscience of the group as a whole can become so fragmented and diluted as to be non-existent. We heard many testify in your January 6 hearings that they were following the directions of their leader, who they believed. Some realized afterwards that they had been deceived, and then in accessing their personal conscience, regretted the evil they'd participated in. A recent example of corporate evil was exposed by 60 Minutes coverage of eBay, a scandal there. A couple near Boston produces an e-commerce newsletter to inform the public. And they reported there were some problems with eBay that they were told about. Executives at eBay sent messages to their security staff to, quote, bring them down, unquote, and, quote, I want ashes, unquote, and paid for their staff to harass and threaten the couple into silence. I won't go into the graphic details, but the couple feared for their life. They had no idea where the threat was coming from until police were able to track down one of the perpetrators to eBay. 7 of the security staff were convicted, but the 2 top executives who gave the orders got off scot-free, one with a $57 million severance package. That lack of accountability in corporations is frightening and dangerous. How many other corporations make decisions that bring enormous evil, like the opioid epidemic, with the excuse that the shareholders require profit? Their employees say they're just doing what the boss demands, and those with the individual courage to say no are often ostracized or fired. We have all probably experienced moments when our integrity of conscience was severely tested by pressures from the group we were members of. When I was in the priesthood 45 years ago, I felt pressure to support church teaching that I could not, in conscience, embrace. It's one of the reasons why I left. When I was in Rome during the Second Vatican Council, I saw clearly the next step the church was called to was welcoming women into the priesthood and making clerical celibacy optional. When a few years later it became clear to me that the male-dominated hierarchy refused to accept these necessary changes, the changes that ought to or needed to happen, we know what human evil exploded in the church. The pedophilia crisis and its cover-up was an enormous human evil that caused tremendous suffering. I could no longer be part of such a hypocritical institution that claimed to be the one-true church, but covered up enormous evil committed by its ministers. Looking back in recent history, it's alarming how long it took for the awareness that all persons are created equal to break through to our collective consciousness, to bring an end to slavery, and then bring an end to discrimination. We're still struggling with that awareness. It's frightening to realize that just ignoring or turning our heads away can give evil its way. As Martin Luther King Jr. put it, the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. The challenge for us today is to unmask human evil wherever we see it, in ourselves or in others, and replace it with the good that is needed at each moment of our lives. Now, I compiled a long list of human evil, but I don't think any of us need reminders of that. We see that every day in the world around us. So I picked some evil that we might be tempted to. Like those of us who claim equality for all, but either ignore or are complicit with discrimination against women and minorities in wages, hiring practices, and deciding who we listen to with respect. Or those of us who support with our investments companies that exploit individuals, contribute to pollution and depletion of natural resources, and refuse to invest in the restoration of the earth. Or those of us, while knowing how serious global warming is, ignore or refuse to make the changes in our lifestyle that would help the planet recover, like recycling, installing solar panels, converting to electric cars, seriously reducing our use of fossil fuels. Now, each of you, I'm sure, could add to that list of human evil, especially those who have suffered at the hands of those who knowingly or unknowingly continue to act in self-centered ways without regard for the impact of their actions. One classic story of human evil is described in the book, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's likely that you all heard that story many times. The backstory to that is Robert Louis Stevenson woke out of a nightmare when a benign, gracious image of a person transformed into a malign, vicious person. And he woke up frightened to death of what he'd seen. His wife wisely told him, "You better write about it, Robert." And he did. And so came the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That story can be seen as a contrast between the good and evil in all of us, who we are in the daylight of public image and who we are in the darkness of night when our shadow self emerges. But John Sanford, in his book, The Strange Trial of Mr. Hyde, reveals that the evil of Mr. Hyde is rooted in the pretense, facade, and egocentricity of Dr. Jekyll, who was completely focused on presenting his ideal image of himself to others. One definition of that egocentricity from the psychologist Fritz Kunkel is the single-minded, largely unconscious effort of the ego to defend and protect itself and to further its own ambitions. While Scott Peck in the book, The People of the Lie, describes this behavior as narcissism. When people are so egocentrically focused only on what serves them and oblivious to the needs of others, they can trample on the needs of others without any awareness of the destructiveness they leave in their path. A particularly destructive form of narcissism we see in leaders like Trump and Putin. It's malignant narcissism, which is, quote, characterized by an unsubmitted will. All adults who are mentally healthy submit themselves one way or another to something higher than themselves, be it God or truth or love or some other ideal. The scary thing about the malignant narcissist is that their extraordinary willfulness manifests in their power to influence and control others who are attracted and seduced by them because they're so convinced that they're right. This is one of the reasons why Mary Trump called her uncle the most dangerous man in America. That unsubmitted willfulness continues to be on full display as he insists, all evidence to the contrary, that he won the 2020 election. Our democracy requires that we submit our wills to the will of the people expressed in our elections. Only in that submission will government of the people, by the people, for the people survive. You notice in these themes of human evil the theme of willfully ignoring, repressing, or denying the consciousness that is needed for a particular moment in history. If we fail to develop the awareness we need and act on it at the moment it's needed, all of us and the planet suffers. I think in these days of social media and propaganda masquerading as news, it's much harder to consult the inner voice of conscience. And now with AI, artificial intelligence, how can we tell for sure who we're seeing and what they're saying, whether that's real, true, a fabrication, or deception? Now, every morning you and I wake up and our ego immediately focuses on what it wants and needs to survive. It starts out, it's all about us. Now that's a good thing, to take care of our needs, but left to its own devices, our ego would easily ignore the wants and needs of others. We would become egocentric or even narcissistic. Fortunately, there is a wiser, loving, and caring part of us, or the soul, that if consulted, recognizes that we are not the center of the universe, puts the ego in the passenger seat, and makes decisions for the common good, following guidelines like love your neighbor as yourself. Addicts in 12-step recovery call that the second step, to surrender to a higher power. This Thanksgiving, I'm very grateful that we Unitarians are creating a community that is committed to 7 principles that, if fully lived out, will create the ripple effect in the larger community of unmasking egocentric human evil, rooting it out, and replacing it with justice, equity, and compassion for all humans. It's an incredibly difficult challenge, isn't it, we face in confronting the human evil in and around us. But it's certainly a worthwhile mission to overcome evil with the love in our hearts and our actions. The good news is that at every moment in our lives, we have the freedom to make the choice for the next right thing, the next good thing, the next loving thing that needs to be done. And it's up to each of us to make that choice. I think of the quote from Johann Goethe: until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occurred to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decisions. Whatever you can do or dream, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. I see this reality play out again and again with stories of people from the very young to the old who passionately commit to a worthwhile cause that serves the good. And to their surprise and delight, others join in to support the good they set out to do. What seemed like a small, insignificant gesture of good gets magnified. Each of us only needs to do the right, loving, and good thing. I'd like to close by asking you to imagine that we are all talented musicians in a symphony orchestra. And when we are warming up our particular instruments, the cacophony of sounds would be unpleasant, even grating and irritating. But once each of us submits our instrument to the love song of the universe, the music is magnificent. Together, we can make beautiful music. May it be so. And can I have an amen?
Generosity is a spiritual discipline. We can now practice our act of giving either by placing your offering in the collection plate or by making an electronic deposit by texting the word give to 504-608-7030. That number again is 504-608-7030. Gifts to this community of faith are gratefully received. Let us acknowledge these gifts by reading together the words in your order of service. This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. We will now extinguish our chalice with the words in your order of service. We extinguish the flame here, that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place and guide your way until we are together again.
Please remain as you are and join in singing our closing hymn, number 95, There is More Love Somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
I have taken the benediction from your gray hymnal number 560 by Dorothy Day entitled Commitment. People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There's too much work to do. For the postlude song, I've suggested that when each one of us submits the instrument of our lives to the good of world community, peace, liberty, and justice for all, we make beautiful music together. Those of you who'd like to join in that music can come forward to sing, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. Like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand, and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. That's the song I hear. Harmony. Like to teach the world to sing perfect harmony. I like to teach the world to sing perfect harmony. I like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. All right.